Hello guys, welcome to module 2 of HTML CSS. This is a separate playlist I have created parallel to basics of HTML, and in this module we'll be learning about the syntax that CSS follow and the selectors that are used in CSS. Okay, so let's start. So the basic syntax that CSS follow is, first of all, we have to define a selector that points to the HTML element you want to style. It can be a heading, it can be a paragraph, or anything other than that. Okay. Now we have a declaration box which is inside a curly bracket. This declaration box includes a CSS property name, that is suppose color, and a value which is separated by a colon. So suppose property name is color and the value is blue, so we'll write color colon blue. Now if you want to declare multiple declarations, you have to use a semicolon. Okay, so you can declare multiple CSS with a semicolon inside the declaration box. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now this is a typical example of CSS syntax. That means you have to define a paragraph. Now this paragraph is containing the font color red and a text aligned to the center. So in this example, all the paragraph elements will be center aligned with a red color text. Okay. Now as example is explained, I'll show you how this thing works. So we put these things in a head section under a style tag. So suppose I want to define a paragraph P and I gave color colon red and text align colon center. Okay, now inside the body I'll design a paragraph. I'll write this is my paragraph. Okay, I'll close this thing. I'll write another paragraph. And I'll write this is also a paragraph. Okay, /p. So whatever comes inside the paragraph tag will be styled according to the tag we have given here. Okay, we'll save this thing and we'll run this thing. See, the text color is red and it is aligned to the center. So no matter how many paragraphs you specify, the paragraph will follow this syntax. Okay, so this is about the CSS syntax. Now we'll go about the CSS selectors. So CSS selectors are used to find the HTML element that you want to style. Suppose you want to style a paragraph, suppose you want to style a heading, so the selectors are used to select the heading or the paragraph. Okay, so suppose the element selector selects HTML element based on the element name. Okay, so there are multiple type of selectors. We have class selector, ID selector, and multiple element selector. So the element selector selects the HTML element based on the element name. Suppose the paragraph, like the last example we used, we selected the HTML element selector. Okay, we defined the paragraph. The proper syntax is the same as the previous example we did. Okay, the CSS ID selector is a different kind of selector. I'll show you how this thing works. So in the same style tag, okay, suppose I use a hashtag and I define para1. Okay, and I'll define suppose color blue semicolon text align right. Okay, this is I said. Now this ID selector can never start with the numeric. It has to start with the alphabet. Okay, so now how we can use it? Suppose I want to give a heading. Okay, h1. I'll give a space. I'll write ID equals to commas. I'll write para1. I'll write here hello people. I'll close this heading /h1. Okay, now see what happens. I'll reload the page and this is how it comes. So hello people has a color blue and it is aligned towards the right what we have defined inside the para 1, because we have given heading 1 as the id equals to the para 1. So to define the selector as the id part, you have to write hashtag anything. It can be para 1, para 2, div, any word thing you can write here. And you have to keep one thing in mind, that it should always start with an alphabet. Okay, and then you define this thing. Then whatever you use, suppose I want to use a paragraph. Okay, p. Now this p I decide in id equals to para 1. Okay, all right, this is genius. Okay, and I'll close this /p. Now I have defined the paragraph in two ways. First of all, in style tag, now separately inline. Now the inline tag will dominate whatever we have decided in the style tag. That I'll tell you in the upcoming modules. But for now, the paragraph will follow the style which is inline with the paragraph. Okay, so I'll save this thing and I'll run this thing. So this is genius is according to the para 1 tag, color blue, text align right. Okay, so I hope this thing is clear. Now the next thing comes is the CSS Class Selector. Now the same thing can be done with a class format. What you have to do, you have to write dot and any name you want, suppose alpha. Okay, and you decide the thing for that. Suppose color colon, I decided to be black, and text align to be red. Okay, now what I do is I write a paragraph. I'll just give a space. I'll write class and equals to the class what we have defined, that is dot alpha. So I'll write alpha. We won't be writing the hashtag and dot. This hashtag is defining an id and dot is defining a class. So I'll write a class alpha. I'll write this is an alpha class. Okay, /t. I'll save this thing. I'll run this thing. See what happens. This is an alpha class, is coming in black color and center aligned. What we have, I'm so sorry, the text align should be suppose left I decide. Okay, I'll save this thing. So it will come on the left. Okay, so text align is left, color is black, what we have decided in inline CSS. So this is a typical example of a class selector. Now there is a thing called the CSS Universal Selector. The Universal Selector selects all the HTML elements on the page. Okay, so suppose you wrote as this asterisk mark and then text line center color to be blue. So whatever I give, suppose I'll write here, I'll delete this thing. First of all, I'll give a asterisk mark, text asterisk mark bracket, text align center and color purple. Okay, so I'll remove this part also, whatever IDs I have defined in the previous examples. So let's see how this thing comes. We'll save this thing and we'll reload the page. See how this thing comes. So everything inside the body, because we have defined an asterisk mark, so asterisk mark will be applied to all over the body, and everything inside this asterisk mark will follow this CSS syntax. Okay, text line will be center, color will be purple. So this is what it follows. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. The next thing is CSS Grouping Selector. Sometimes we have to define the same thing, same CSS property to multiple selectors. Okay, it may be from heading 1 also, heading 2 and paragraph. We are defining the same thing. So rather than defining in separate line for individually, what we can do is we can separate them using a comma and we can save the workspace. I'll show you how this thing works. Okay, so I'll write, suppose initially you wanted the heading to be text align center, or this time right, maybe right, and color to be blue. Okay, So this is the same thing you want this coding to follow for H1, H2 also. Okay, and paragraph also. Okay, so what will happen? I'll say this thing. It will do it like this. Okay, everything is aligned towards the right in the color blue. So, but it consume a lot of workspace. So what you'll do, you'll remove this thing. You'll write H1, comma H2, comma P. Okay, you'll save this thing, and nothing will change. Everything is same. So this is used to save the workspace in the HTML coding. Okay, so this is the way the grouping selector is used. So I hope whatever I told you in this module is clear to you. So first of all, we define a class selector. So just like an intro, we have to start with a dot, that is a period mark. We have dot, example is intro, and it selects all the element with class equals to intro. Suppose we want to define an ID. So suppose the ID example is the first name. So it selects the element with ID equals to the first name. Okay. Asterisk selects all element. The element may be P or H1 or H2. It will select the H1, H2 or P element, or you can define, you can group the selectors using a separating comma. So I hope this CSS syntax and CSS selectors is clear to you. If you have any doubts, just let me know. Okay, thank you so much.